Every morning before the world wakes up, before your doubts rise, before your past tries to pull you back, you have a window, a moment where you decide who you are and how you're going to show up. Most people waste that moment. They scroll, they complain, they repeat the same story they've lived for years. But you're not here to repeat a story, you're here to rewrite it. Because 5 simple words spoken with certainty, intensity, and purpose can snap you into a state of power before your feet even hit the floor. This is where your transformation begins. The morning is your reset button. It's the moment the world is quiet, before the noise, before the messages, before the doubts even have a chance to breathe. Most people wake up and immediately fall into yesterday's problems, yesterday's emotions, yesterday's limitations. But every single morning, you are given a doorway to a new beginning. A new identity, a new level of personal power. The question is, do you walk through it or do you drag yesterday and today? The truth is, your life shifts the moment you recognize that the first 5 minutes of your morning are some of the most valuable minutes you'll ever experience. Because in those first 5 minutes, your mind is wide open. It's absorbing, it's shaping, it's deciding what kind of day you're about to live. You can choose to default into stress, or you can choose to direct your mind towards something higher. And that decision begins with the words you say to yourself. Think about it. The world is constantly telling you what you can't do, what you should fear, what you should settle for. But when you wake up in the morning before the world gets a vote, you get to cast the first one. You set the emotional tone. You set the direction. You declare who you're going to be today. That's the power of making your mornings intentional instead of automatic. Automatic mornings lead to automatic results. Intentional mornings create intentional lives. There are people who wake up and jump straight into their phone, checking notifications, checking messages, checking other people's lives before they check in with themselves. And when you do that, you're already behind. You're already reactive. You're already giving away your power. But when you take those first moments and you speak strength into your identity, everything changes. Because what you say in the morning is not just a phrase, it's a command. It's you telling your mind, this is the state I choose. This is the direction I move. This is who I am today. When you understand that the morning resets your emotional, mental, and spiritual energy, you stop treating it like a routine and start treating it like preparation, like stepping into the arena, like gearing up for battle. You don't walk into your day soft. You walk in centered, grounded, and ready. Because those 5 words you'll learn in this speech aren't just motivational lines. They're anchors. They're triggers that pull you back into your power even before your feet hit the floor. And when you speak them with intention, something incredible happens. Your breath changes, your posture changes, your energy shifts. You feel yourself stepping into a different version of you, the you that rises instead of reacts, the you that chooses instead of drifts, the you that leads instead of follows. That shift is the very thing most people spend their whole lives searching for. But it's available every single morning if you're willing to claim it. Your morning becomes a sacred moment. Not soft, not cheesy, powerful. A moment where you interrupt fear before fear interrupts you. A moment where you break the pattern of hesitation before hesitation even shows up. A moment where you speak your future into your present, where you train your mind to move with certainty instead of doubt. That's the point where transformation begins. Your mornings are not just the start of your day. They are the start of your identity. And the words you choose to speak in that moment will shape everything that follows. Because the day doesn't decide who you are, you do. Your words shape your emotional state long before your circumstances do. Most people think their emotions are automatic, that they just feel what they feel because of what's happening in their lives. But emotions don't just appear out of nowhere. They're created. They're triggered. They're built by the meaning you attach to your experiences and the language you use to describe them. And the moment you understand that your words are the steering wheel of your emotional life, you stop letting the day control you and start controlling the day. Every time you say something to yourself, your brain listens. It responds. It adjusts. If you wake up and say, I'm tired, I don't feel like it, this is going to be a long day, your body will match that energy. It will shut down your power. It will dim your focus. It will drain your drive. But if you wake up and speak words that ignite strength, that command clarity, that anchor you into purpose, your entire emotional system fires differently. Your breath deepens, your mind sharpens, your physiology lifts. That shift doesn't happen by accident. It happens by intention. Think of your words like fuel. Some words weaken you, drain you, slow you down. Other words elevate you, excite you, move you forward. And when you choose your language with intention every morning, you're not just saying something positive. You're building the emotional foundation for the kind of day you want to live. You're wiring your brain for power instead of fear, momentum instead of hesitation, conviction instead of doubt. Most people underestimate just how much language affects their state. They think it's small, they think it's insignificant, but your state determines everything. It determines how you respond to problems. It determines whether you hesitate or take action. It determines whether you show up with confidence or collapse into stress. And your state is shaped by the words you choose the moment you wake up. This is why those 5 morning words matter so much. When you say them, you're not repeating empty affirmations, you're activating a strategy. You're stepping into a new emotional gear. You're interrupting any pattern that pulls you into weakness and replacing it with one that pulls you into strength. Language is leverage. And when you use the right words at the right moment, you create momentum before the world even has a chance to slow you down. Think about the days when you felt unstoppable, when you felt alive, focused, certain. It wasn't because the world was easier that day. It was because your state was different. You were locked in. You were aligned. You were clear. And that state was created by how you spoke to yourself, maybe without even realizing it. Now imagine creating that intentionally every single morning. When you take control of your language, you take control of your emotional home. You stop living in the emotions that drain you, and you start living in the emotions that elevate you. Because you can have the greatest goals, the greatest strategy, the greatest vision, but if you wake up in a lousy state, you won't follow through. If you wake up in a powerful state, everything changes. You move differently. You think differently. You lead your life instead of letting life lead you. So when you speak those 5 words each morning, speak them with intensity. Speak them with certainty. Speak them with the understanding that you are shaping the emotional foundation of your entire day. Because the moment your language shifts, your life shifts. Identity drives action. Always, you will never consistently act in a way that is different from who you believe you are. You might push for a moment. You might force yourself through a day or two. But if your identity doesn't match the life you want, eventually your actions will snap back to the level of the identity you've been living with. That's why these 5 morning words matter so deeply. They aren't just things you say. They are pieces of identity you're installing into yourself every single day. When you wake up, your mind is wide open. It's absorbing, shaping, defining. And the words you speak in that moment don't just create a mood, they create a sense of self. If you start your day with language that reinforces weakness, uncertainty, or limitation, your identity drifts right back into that small version of you. And the moment your identity shrinks, your actions shrink with it. You stop reaching, stop trying, stop expanding. You operate at the level of who you believe you are. But when you choose words that elevate your identity, words that align with who you're becoming instead of who you've been, you interrupt that old pattern and install a new blueprint for your life. Every breakthrough begins with identity. People don't lose weight, change careers, rebuild confidence, or reinvent their lives because they felt like it. They do it because something inside them shifted. They stopped identifying as the person who struggles and started identifying as the person who grows, the person who follows through, the person who refuses to settle. And that identity shift always starts with the language they use. The moment you tell yourself a different story, you start living a different life. Think about someone who's trying to break an old habit. If they keep saying, this is just who I am, this is just how I've always been, they lock themselves into a fixed identity. They reinforce the very thing they're trying to escape. But the second they shift to language like, this is who I'm becoming, this is who I choose to be, everything opens. Their behavior begins to reflect the new identity instead of the old one. That's the power you have every morning. You're not just saying words, you're rewriting your internal script. And when the script changes, the performance changes. Your actions start lining up with your new identity without the constant struggle, without the constant push, without the constant battle between who you want to be and who you've believed yourself to be. When you upgrade your identity through the words you speak every morning, you make the rest of the day easier. You remove friction. You remove inner conflict. You move from discipline to alignment because it's hard to act confident when you see yourself as insecure. It's hard to act disciplined when you see yourself as inconsistent. It's hard to act powerful when you see yourself as broken, but it becomes natural, effortless when the identity matches the behavior. Those 5 morning words are designed to pull you into that alignment, to make sure you're not just hoping for a better day, but stepping into it as the person who's capable of creating it. They remind you who you are before the world tries to remind you who you were. And if you lean into them with certainty, with emotion, with intention, you start building an identity that is stronger than any challenge you'll face. Because the moment you choose a higher identity, your entire life begins to rise with it. Most people don't even realize how quickly their mornings fall into old emotional patterns. The moment the alarm goes off, their mind goes straight into stress, worry, doubt, or the same story they've been replaying for years. It happens automatically because the brain is wired for efficiency, not empowerment. It doesn't ask, is this thought helpful? It just repeats whatever it's rehearsed the most. And if you don't interrupt that pattern the moment you wake up, it takes over your entire day before you even take your first deep breath. This is why the words you tell yourself every morning are so crucial. They interrupt the autopilot. They stop the momentum of old emotional habits before those habits lock your state into a place you don't want to leave. When you wake up and instantly speak words that pull you into strength, you break the cycle. You stop the flood of old stories that try to creep in and reclaim your mind. You take back control before the world even has a chance to influence you. The mind loves patterns. If your pattern has been fear, it will search for fear. If your pattern has been doubt, it will search for reasons to doubt. If your pattern has been hesitation, your body will move slow and certain, unfocused. But the moment you interrupt the pattern, even with a simple phrase, even with a shift in language, you snap your mind into a new state. And the faster you interrupt those old patterns, the less power they have over you. Think about how often people wake up and instantly relive yesterday. Maybe it was a mistake they made, a conversation that went wrong, something they're afraid of, something they're delaying, something they're unsure about. The mind latches onto the familiar, but familiar isn't the same as empowering. Familiar isn't the same as growth. Familiar isn't the same as who you're becoming. And this is where your 5 morning words become more than just words. They become a command to your nervous system. Instead of waking up and falling into stress, you declare direction. Instead of waking up and rehearsing your past, you create your future. Instead of waking up and letting fear take the first swing, you step in and take charge. When you interrupt a negative pattern early, you prevent it from spiraling into a negative day. Because emotional momentum is real, if the first thought you have is weak, the next one usually matches it. If the first thing you say is disempowering, your physiology begins to shrink, your breathing gets shallow, your posture collapses, and suddenly you're living in a state that steals your potential. But if the first thing you say is powerful, you bend your mind towards strength. You shift your breathing. You shift your posture. You prime your entire system for a different level of energy. The earlier you break the pattern, the easier it is to build a new one. That's why the morning is such a critical moment, because once the pattern starts, it's harder to interrupt. But right when you wake up before your mind grabs onto the old script, you have leverage. You have a window. You have a chance to redirect the entire emotional pathway of your day. Your 5 morning words are the trigger that tells your mind, we're not going back. We're not repeating the same story. We're not living in the past. They pull you into alignment with your highest self instead of your old patterns. They help you step into the day with intention instead of falling into old emotional loops. Because your life changes the moment you refuse to let yesterday control today. There's a moment every morning, right after your eyes open, right before the world starts demanding your attention, where you have the power to activate the strongest version of yourself. Most people never use that moment. They wake up slow, unfocused, already drained, already overwhelmed. They let their body slump. Their breathing stays shallow, their thoughts drift without direction. And then they wonder why the rest of the day feels heavy, unproductive, or scattered. But that shift they're looking for, that surge of confidence or clarity or strength, doesn't come from waiting. It comes from intentionally activating your peak state the moment you wake up. Peak state isn't something random or mystical. It's a combination of your focus, your energy, and your physiology all aligning in the same direction. When those 3 elements sync, you become unstoppable. You think clearer, you move faster, you make better decisions, you stop hesitating and start creating. And the fastest way to trigger that alignment is through the words you speak first thing in the morning. Words that aren't weak or passive, but words that activate the emotional and physical gear you want to live in. When you speak powerful language with intensity, your brain responds instantly. Your nervous system fires differently. Your posture changes. You breathe deeper. You step into a sense of certainty that the average person never feels in the morning, not because they don't want it, but because they don't activate it. They wait for the day to give them energy instead of generating their own. But the people who lead their lives, the people who rise, the people who dominate their day, they do the opposite. They create the state first, and everything that follows is shaped by that energy. When you say your 5 morning words with intention, you're not just getting motivated. You're calibrating your emotional engine. You're telling your mind, this is the level we operate at today. And your physiology responds. You might feel your chest open up, your shoulders rise, your breath deepen, your mind sharpen. You create momentum before any obstacle has a chance to knock you off center. Because the truth is, you can't wait for inspiration. You can't wait for the perfect moment. You can't wait to feel ready. Peak state is something you generate on demand, and your language is the trigger. Think about the days when everything clicked. The days when you felt confident without effort, decisive without fear, energized without trying. Those weren't accidents. You tapped into a state that amplified your strengths. Now imagine being able to create that every morning, not occasionally, not randomly, but intentionally. That's the power of this ritual. You're not speaking words to sound positive. You're firing up the mindset, the emotions, and the physical energy of the person you want to be. Because when your state is powerful, everything becomes easier. Conversations flow, challenges feel lighter, decisions feel clearer. You follow through without the mental tug of war. You show up with more energy than you did the day before because you're starting from a place of expansion, not survival. And if something difficult hits you later in the day, you don't collapse. You respond with resilience because you started your morning with strength instead of scarcity. The world isn't built to keep you in a peak state. It's built to distract you, overwhelm you, stress you, and pull you in 100 directions. So if you don't take control of your state first, the world will take it from you. But when you speak those 5 words with intensity, emotion, and certainty, you take command. You step into your day already elevated, already aligned, already operating at a level most people never reach until the day is already half over. Because your life shifts the moment you decide to generate the energy you need instead of waiting for it. Your mornings are not just part of your routine. They're the blueprint of the life you're building. Every day you wake up, you're laying another brick in the foundation of your future. And most people don't even realize how much those tiny, seemingly insignificant moments shape everything that comes after. They assume big breakthroughs come from big events. They assume transformation comes from a single dramatic moment. But life doesn't change from one giant leap. It changes from the small, consistent choices you make every single morning. Those 5 words you speak aren't just affirmations. They're instructions to your mind. They're commands. They're reminders. They're anchors. They shape your focus, your decisions, your behaviors, and eventually your destiny. Because if you start every morning choosing your identity, choosing your emotional state, choosing your direction, then the path you walk through the rest of the day becomes intentional instead of accidental. Most people let their day shape them. They let their schedule shape them. They let their problems shape them. But the second you step into a morning ritual that puts you in command, you flip the dynamic completely. You're no longer reacting, you're designing. You're no longer hoping, you're choosing. You're no longer drifting, you're building. And it's important to understand that everything you want, every goal, every dream, every vision, depends on the person you show up as daily. Not once in a while. Not when you feel inspired, not when everything's easy, but consistently, predictably, relentlessly. And that consistency comes from these small daily moments where you set the tone before the world can set it for you. Your 5 morning words become a daily contract with yourself. They shape the lens you look through. They shift what you focus on. They determine what you tolerate, what you ignore, what you chase, and what you refuse to settle for. And if you repeat them with intention every single morning, they begin to sink deeper than just your conscious mind. They begin to rewire the beliefs that have been shaping your life for years. This is how real transformation happens. Not by forcing change from the outside, but by building it from the inside. When your identity shifts, your decisions follow. When your decisions shift, your habits evolve. When your habits evolve, your life transforms. This is the chain reaction that starts with something as simple as the words you speak when the day is brand new. You might not see the change on day one. You might not feel the shift in a single morning. But over weeks, months, seasons, you start noticing you're less reactive. You're more grounded. You respond differently. You make decisions from strength instead of fear. You feel yourself rising into a version of you that once felt out of reach. And nothing is more powerful than the moment you realize you're no longer trying to become that person. You are that person because your mornings create your momentum. Your momentum creates your behavior, and your behavior creates your life. And the life you want begins with the words you choose to live by.